The box office for Memorial Day weekend has some highs, has some lows, and a little bit of history was made over the weekend. The big stories are Star Wars and Obsession, but I want to start with I Love Boosters. The Boots Riley written and directed Kiki Palmer starring comedy made about $4 million over the holiday weekend. And put that up against a $20 million production budget and a respectable ad budget, that's not the best outing. Like a movie only making about 20% of its budget in the first weekend is not a good sign. But the weird part, the interesting part, is that this movie had such a jump from his last movie. His directorial debut, Sorry to Bother You, had a production budget of about 3 million. So when that movie grossed 17 million, that's a success. So for his production budget to go from $3 million to more than what the last movie grossed is interesting because the question is why did adding Kiki Palmer as the lead give them a little bit more confidence in the mainstream appeal of the movie? Because the last movie she starred in, One of Them Days, did make $50 million on a $14 million budget, but also that movie was a lot more straightforward and a lot easier to sell than this trippy absurdist crime caper. Because not only is this production budget a big leap for this filmmaker, but it's also a big leap for the production company. This is Neon's most expensive film to date. Maybe they're positioning this movie to have a really robust awards campaign. Neon's previous movies like Parasite and Anora did really well during award season, and that boosted the pedigree of the movies and the production studio. So maybe they're positioning I Love Boosters to have that kind of effect. And maybe word of mouth will spread about this movie and it'll have a more consistent run that'll make it more profitable. And we've seen now it happen in another movie, which is Obsession. Normally, a movie loses money from week to week after it's released, and a normal amount is about 45 to 55%. Usually, that's the normal drop off from week one to week two. It's very rare for a movie to not lose money at all, or in some cases, make money from week one to week two. But that's exactly what Obsession did. Its opening weekend, it made $17 million. And over this Memorial Day weekend, it actually made more. It made like over $20 million just in its second week, which again, not unheard of, but just exceedingly rare. To me, that just goes to show that word of mouth with movies still matters and that people will go to the movies if they feel like it's worth it. But the big headline for the box office is Star Wars is back. Mandalorian and Grogu came out over the holiday weekend and it made over $100 million. Now, some people will try and tell you that this is disappointing or that the movie is a failure because it's the lowest Star Wars opening to this date and it's about the same as what Solo, a Star Wars story, made, and we consider that a flop. But the disingenuous people will neglect to add the context. This is also probably the cheapest Star Wars movie ever made, not counting like the animated Clone Wars movie that went to theaters. But live action movies, this is the cheapest one ever made. It was made for like $160 million. Add maybe like another, at least another $100 million on for that budget. A movie making over 60% of its budget in the opening weekend is never a bad thing. And you can't measure a Star Wars movie just by box office because Star Wars is a brand. The merchandising for Star Wars brings in about $1 billion a year. Just Star Wars, just merchandise. And for the year 2021 and 2022, the highest selling piece of merchandise was Grogu. So not only was this movie successful as a movie, but it's going to drive subscribers to Disney Plus. It's going to make Grogu paraphernalia fly off the shelves. This is going to be a big change agent, a big influx for Disney and Star Wars. And just to preempt the people next week who's going to say the sky is falling, a successful movie, like I said, is going to drop 45 to 50% from week one to week two. So next week, when Mandalorian and Grogu makes $50 million, don't listen to anybody who says it was a huge drop off. It wasn't. It was a normal drop off.